In this week's episode, I am joined by Rick Langley, a motivational speaker, the founder of Hands-On Outreach and Development Center that ran from 1991 until 2022. He is the owner of his own publication company, the co-author of Dysfunctional, the Rick Langley story, author of Cook 'em and Kids coloring books about bullying, racism, and suicide, and someone who's rebuilt his life and helped countless others do the same. Rick's story shows how even the most damaged structures can be rebuilt stronger and how that work extends to building up people and communities. Welcome to Building Life, where construction meets consciousness. Rick, take us back to the early blueprints of your life. What stands out most from your childhood in terms of environment or experiences that shaped who you became initially?
Grew up in a big family, a lot of dysfunction, hence the title of the book. I think at age 5 was really my first big memory, and it was a violent memory. I remember hearing arguments. Family was getting divided up and whatnot. And as we were driving away from the reserve, there was X amount of us in one car, and I remember my dad standing on the porch waving goodbye, and I didn't really know what was going on, but I knew that it was different, and I piped up from the back seat, what's going on? What about Dad? All of this fist came across the front seat and just smashed my face. It broke my nose. Started bleeding. I was pretty much in shock, but I didn't scream out. And looking back, I think I was familiar with aggression and violence at that point because I seemed to take an in stride and almost under control immediately. And I was told there's a rag on the floor, don't drip on the seats. And so I had this oil rag from the floor one of my brothers handed to me. And I remember holding it to my face and in shock at this new man driving away that I really didn't seem to know, and knowing that this was another chapter and feeling very lost and scared as I'm sitting there swallowing as much blood as I'm spitting out, and not realizing that this was going to be my new norm for quite a while, but knowing that day that I was living in fear, that there was something dark that I didn't understand, but it hurt.
You said in the book, and we've talked about it, that your nose was broken for the 13th time on your 13th birthday.
Correct.
From there, growing up with this abuse, violence, that kind of shaped who you became as a teenager and even in your younger years. Getting into martial arts was kind of your outlet to take this aggression that you had and, apply it in a way that gave you discipline and gave you this outlet to release some of that aggression without actually harming people. And, from there, your skills also advanced as well. And then you started working in a pool hall, you became a bouncer in a pool hall, all that kind of stuff. And so in your younger years, there was a lot of this kind of ebb and flow to your life as far as that violence goes.
I basically lived in some pool halls and took care of any of the issues that came up in regards to not only my own being successful in regards to the dealing, but any issues that may have come up in regards to other patrons or anybody else trying to cause us grief and doing what we do to survive. But I think the main area for learning or wanting to be in martial arts and learning how to take care of myself was just rooted from day one. And then you alluded towards the 13th birthday, the 13th time. And looking back on that and realizing that the idea that I even counted them, that it happened so often, and in between them times, there was some vicious beatings that weren't just a broken nose, jaw, arm, where they were going to actually amputate it. Gangrene had set in so much. So there was some violence that was so drastic that I got to a point where I just sort of shut inward. I really didn't express much, and when I did, it was usually in rage. So when it got to the point where I first struck back and started to defend myself, I found that I sure know how to cause pain. Maybe being the recipient as such, I really blocked out anything that I was receiving to what I was delivering.
Yeah.
I found myself given some of the viciousness, and I often thought from whatever the parent was, some of the viciousness, especially my mother, that was just so raw and raged. I caught myself hurting them that bad as well. Several times even being frustrated that I got in a good scrap, but I didn't have a chance to release half that rage. And it's still pent up. It was just akin to a pressure cooker where you only had a little bit of the steam come off all the time. And it was just always ready to boil, but it just never exploded. And there was always just that little bit of the steam just releasing enough, just almost cope. And in that coping came a lot of dysfunction from many aspects of my life, not understanding the basic functions of a young adult, and only knowing one way to handle any situation, and all 50 choices led to violence. So there wasn't really many other avenues to solve any issues or problems or confrontations other than aggression. And so it definitely not only formed my life, but caused me a lot of stumbling blocks as well.
Who or what kind of led you to start demolishing that part of your life and then starting to build something new?
It was a process in between probably 15 years of age when I was hitchhiking across Canada, just looking to belong and having no fear of what life might bring, but hungry for adventure, to being about 28 years of age and coming to the end of that adventure. I did so much drugs, alcohol, got myself into situations that weren't necessary, and got to the point where I think my biggest enemy was me. My biggest obstacle was the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
The biggest rage I was experiencing was my own. And it was at the point where I really didn't want to be here anymore in regards to life itself. It was a burden. It was burdensome. I didn't know how to stop. The Ferris wheel just kept getting faster and faster. There was times if I looked backwards, I could have easily seen where I should have jumped there, or I should have jumped off there. But hanging on and it's still spinning, that synergism, that build-up just came to the point where it all comes crashing down, mentally, emotionally, physically. And I can remember literally crying out, basically to God, if there's such a thing, I could sure use some help now. And I really felt that was the beginning of the bottom of, now I have to go to jail. I have to do my penance. I got to clean that slate.
Yeah.
And I got to start over. And my question was, did I want to?
Yeah.
And I did, to the point where I said, yeah, let's do this. And hence that was the journey towards where I am today, where I had to basically forgive myself as much as I could. Yeah. Forgive anybody that obstructed the path up until this, or inflicted such stumbling blocks, such my parents or something, that it altered pathways and different avenues of my life. And just take everything and be grateful for what I have, that I made it through. And what a blessing it is to be on this side of it. Now let's deal with the addictions. Let's deal with all the stumbling blocks and see if we can't find a place where maybe it's not normal, but normalcy to me would be at least livable.
We talked about this a little bit earlier, but just now in what you said, you spoke about being 18, traveling across Canada. And I remember from your book, you got to BC and you were looking for work. And that was another story from the book that really stuck with me, was when you walked onto a job site. Can you tell me that story again?
Yes, that was in Elford, BC, actually. It's a little town about half hour north of Fernie. And there's just one shopping mall that they were just starting to build and make an extension around the old one that was already in existence there. And I had gone up there with a friend who owned a drywall company. And when the job was completed, I didn't feel like leaving. And I'm hanging out at the bar, middle of the afternoon, having a few drinks, and I'm watching the gentleman do the brickwork, or being the assistant, the laborer for the two brickies building the mall. And I'm thinking to myself, what a lazy guy, man. He just isn't doing, these guys, they're waiting on bricks even. And then it dawned on me that, well, I should go steal that guy's job. And I laughed to myself sitting in the bar. I thought about it. So I went out to the gentleman that was doing the work, and I told him, my name's Rick. I'm looking for a job. I'm going to try to steal your job. I pulled out a spliff, and I can remember having that with him, sharing it with him, and him saying, what did that, question, what was my angle there? I said, well, nothing. I think I can do better. You're not really doing good for them guys. I'm going to go ask them if I can have your job. But what I'm going to do is I don't want to be a prick to you. I'll do it for free, so you can stay home tomorrow if they agree, and you can have the salary. I won't even, I don't even want it, my friend. I just need a job, and I can do what you're doing way better. And so I'm going to go talk to them and see if I can take your job from you right now. I mean, I just want to make sure you didn't hear from them first, unless you had a problem with me.
That must have been a huge hit to this guy's ego too, but
it might have been, but I wasn't really worried about him in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
He was a big, lazy guy.
Yeah.
And my thought was, I can do better. I need a job. These guys have a big job ahead of them. This might be good for me for months. And so I did. I just walked up to them, and I can remember one was an Aussie. They called him Aussie. His name was Ray. And he was a smaller guy, my size. And the other guy was actually from a town called Lethbridge, and he was the one that owned the company. And I walked up and I says, who's the boss man here? And the Aussie pointed towards the boss and says, hey, excuse me, and I explained the situation. I'd like to steal that man's job. And I remember the Aussie interrupted me and said, excuse me, you're coming to tell us that you want to steal the guy's job? I says, yes, you obviously got a big job and I can do way better than him. I can guarantee it. But I'm not trying to offend you, sir. What I was going to tell you, and I went back to the owner, and I says, if you let me work for you tomorrow, I'll do it for free, and you can give him my wages. If I'm good enough that you hire me, you can give me my wages tomorrow when you fire him, and I'll just start on the next day full time for you. I think I can do that. They thought I was crazy. I said, well, I'm willing to give you a whole day free labor to prove I'm not. They thought it was such a crazy thing. They talked about it themselves. The Australian guy didn't want it. The owner of the company said, well, I sure could use a bit better of a hand. We'll give you a shot. They talked to the other guy. He wasn't impressed, but he liked the idea of having a day off with the wages and thought maybe this skinny little guy couldn't outwork him anyway, so he was safe. I got by noon, they said, congratulations, the job's yours. You don't have to keep doing that. And I just kept on doing what I was doing. It wasn't that hard. It was just using your head. It was just being wise in what they needed to continue the construction, do what they were paying him to do, which he wasn't. I gladly did, and made some great friends, and actually ended up doing a couple other jobs after we finished that mall.
Looking at your own journey, what did tearing down the dysfunctional parts look like? And how did you start pouring a new foundation or laying the new bricks for your own life?
I'd have to say the biggest teardown was cocaine. The violence had gotten to the point, from the nightclubs and the lifestyle, that I was really enjoying copious amounts. To come clean, in my heart, I just knew I really didn't want to, nor did I really feel I had it in me. So I took the easy way out.
Yeah.
I just said, God, if you want me to quit this, I'd love to, but you're going to have to help me because I ain't got what it takes.
Yeah.
And I can remember going through a couple of weeks of some pretty ugly feelings, but I got through it.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been a stumbling block since, just simply because I don't have that desire anymore. It's just not there in the last 10 years, 15 years. I don't even think about it anymore, really. It's just a fleet. And then that was just coming to realization that I had lost control to the point where a substance was controlling me, that I would rather go without a meal just to put a couple more rocks into the pipe or another line up the nose. It was a hard call. It was an embarrassing call. I had already been told by a judge that I needed to go to rehab. I went to a rehab center because it was government
sanctioned. Yeah.
And I partied through the whole thing and really never went a day without. I knew it wasn't going to be a cakewalk for me. And I also knew that I wasn't going to do it on my own power, nor did I really want to. Yeah. If there was a God above, I'm going to need some help because I sure didn't want to quit. And that same sort of process came with me from everything from the day I got off my knees and said, if there's a God, please help. I could really use it. And I can remember telling my heart, if this works, you got a warrior, I'm on your team. And if it doesn't, I've been such an asshole in so many ways on purpose, not to be against innocent people, but other guys that are in the same type of business as me, that I could just go right back and start doing some mopping all over again. I wouldn't lose a stride. So it wasn't so much as, oh, look at me, I have a safety net. It was, I'm laying flat on the floor and just saying, if there's a hope, please, I really don't want to go back. I need to go forward. And I think that was the big turning point for me, just realizing there had to be a greater power, because I didn't have any.
Hands-on, they ran for just over 30 years, where you're feeding children. You gave a safe space for them to be, allowed them to do things around in the community. And you even had a bit of an auto body shop that you were taking the older youth, to keep them off the streets, keep them out of gangs, keep them away from drugs. And in that auto body shop, you're trying to teach them skills to be able to walk away and say, see, you can do something creative. You are worth something. And with that in mind, is there any type of principle that could be applied to building, whether it's literal or metaphorical, that helped you keep that project going over the years, to be able to run that for 31 years and not have any outside funding sources?
You're right. Absolutely. There is standing faith and let people be all they can be.
Yeah.
A lot of times I had to get out of my own way. There's so many people that made it happen. So when you say, yes, I was the catalyst in certain things to going in, none of that would have happened if it would have been way back when, at 15 years old, with a broken leg in a cast from a stolen motorbike, police chasing me, hitchhiking across Canada. We cut the cast off, the leg breaks open, I'm bleeding out, pass out in the ditch, and some lady drives by with her husband in a mobile home. And she was a nurse, and she just retired. They're going to the States. And she stitches me back up and saves me. I would have stopped the journey there. How many more times were there amazing people along that way? When I was on my hands and knees, it was in the presence of a man named Ralph Galegi, a pastor that was just so gracious and gentle in spirit, who turned out to be a mentor for the next 10, 12 years, who actually jumped on my board and helped me actually start Hands On and giving back. And so that's sort of what I'm getting at. The person that starts out in carpentry has to start as a young man. He doesn't start as a journeyman. He starts as an apprentice.
Yes.
And a lot of times in our walk, that's what it was. When I got on my knees, or when I wanted to dummy up, if I just wanted to quit, maybe I wouldn't have done it on my own will. But having friends, having that support, having the belief that I can do it, having somebody else showing me, I love that you've never received or believed in before, and that's that you aren't all that bad. There's some good there, brother. Why don't you just give yourself a break? Look in the mirror. God's done good things in you. And once we start to come to realize that we can pay it forward. And so all I did really, I think, was took so much beauty given to me by others in such traumatic times of my life. There was such love and compassion given by total strangers, or I wouldn't be here, literally, some very ugly. And all I got a chance to do was to pay some of that forward. And as them opportunities came, I seen them people take it off and make it and pass it forward to another. The auto body shop came alive just because some of the children I hadn't seen for a while came in one day, and I said, guys, I hadn't seen you for a while. They said, well, Rick, the younger kids need it more than you do. There's not enough room in this building. I took that with me. I thought about it a couple of days, and it dawned on me that they needed the love just as much as anybody else, maybe even more, because I've gained their trust and they can share their hearts with me. And they're at the point where they're saying, but the littlest kids need you more, Rick. So we're not going to try to take up your time. So when they came in the following day, I said, hey guys, a few days back when you were talking, I was thinking about it last night. And if I got a bigger building, is there anything you would like to do? And one of the kids immediately said, I'd like to build motorbikes. And they come, okay, so let's build cars. And I know they were just being flippy and just joking that, but I said, so if I were to get a bigger building and had an opportunity for you children youth to build cars, you're telling me you would like to build a car? They were like bubblegum happy. Yeah, they really were. So that's what I did. I just went out there and found another building, opened it, went and knocked some doors with some auto body guys and said, you remember you said if I were to do something like this one day, you'd like to get involved with the kids? I'm going to get a bigger building. You want to help me build cars with kids? Because I don't know nothing about cars other than how to ditch them and total them. That's all I've done. These gentlemen stepped forward. So yes, we did build a car, and we made it to the cover of a magazine, and it was just amazing, the story in the magazine with these kids, what they did. But again, it was somebody else that started way back just saying, I'd like to build some young youth that just wanted to belong. And all I did was open the door for them to walk through, and they ran. It was beautiful.
Took your life from being, like a street enforcer to eventually going on and, helping kids to prevent them following down that same path.
Try.
Yeah. And what's one key reinforcement or lesson that you could pass on to someone right now that would prevent them from going down that path, and what they could utilize to build a better life for themselves?
If there was anything I could tell anyone, it's to forgive yourself. There's been a lot of things that we all feel guilty of, and that usually what compounds and puts angst in our life. And forgive ourselves. It wasn't our fault that we got in them situations when we could control when we were kids. And a lot of them times you can't do better until you know better. And that will apply to anybody at any age. You can't expect me as an adult to do better unless I know better. And then you can expect me to be disappointed if I don't. Yeah. But hopefully with that guidance, with that encouragement, with that illumination of that, what I could do to make a brighter, better life, I do that. And in that process, we just shine a little bit more on the next person in line and to the next youth, the next child. And I think as we're open to blessing others, because we've been so blessed, I think then privileges come along where we get to bless. And quite honestly, Ashton, I really believe that is a blessing. For us to be able to seed, to plant, and sometimes it's just to sit and listen and absorb. But the privilege that even a child would allow us into their presence to share their life, we're pretty lucky. And when we can speak love or do it even better than just verbs, if we can do it by action, we can change the world.
Yeah. What inspired you to create Cook 'em and Kids, these coloring books?
That was so much fun. I had the privilege of going up north with a company called Points Athabasca. Great people work up in the Athabasca Basin. And it was to talk to some of the kids. And I was going to be up there for a week, so off we go. There's a bunch of other things going on because there's a trade show going on, fair. It's a lot of fun. But I had some time in the morning when I wasn't doing nothing. As of the second day, I'm looking around. What am I going to do between 9 and 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning when it starts? So I asked the principal if I could maybe speak to the youngest ones. And he mentioned grade 1 and 2. Probably, wouldn't be my cup of tea, my forte. So, that's why they didn't make appointments with me. And I said, well, I love kids. Could I have that privilege for just 20 minutes? And so he let me into a class. I had the privilege of sitting down, started talking with some of the kids, and it was just so much fun. That it was just amazing. And the principal felt it was a value because then we walked around to every classroom. I think there was 4 of them, grade 2, 2 for 2 and 2 for 1. And I spoke to the 4 of them about 20, 25 minutes each class. And just the questions that they asked when I asked about bullying. And that just dawned on me. I had so much fun, but it dawned on me that they all had a heart. They all had something that they wanted. From the little girl whose doggy was big and pushed her around being bullied, to the kid that had another one at school picking on her. Everyone had a story and they all wanted to be heard. And I was thinking what a great way it would be if we could come up with some kind of a way for the Cookums, for the Muslims and Cookums to be able to bridge a gap, talk about some of these very difficult topics. I just heard about bullying, I heard about racism, and suicide was rampant. And talking to the principal, he said them were the 3 biggest issues that they were facing across the board as far as the youth of all ages at that school, or in most of their schools. So I thought if we could create something where the grandmothers could create questions and answer with the kids. So came up with the idea of a coloring book where on one side they just do the parental, the grandma colors flowers, and then on the other side goes this story of several different races of children being friends, and then their journey with the wisdom of Grandma Cookham, guiding them and answering some of the more difficult questions. A gentle way to breach what I felt was racism, bullying, and suicide. Started with 1, quickly exploded to 2, then 3. And it's just been a real privilege to even go up there, hand out the books, or to the many schools I do go to, and hand them to the kids, and hand off 100 boxes of crayons. And hopefully they're going to sit down and have some prime quality time with grandma, grandpa, maybe it's the brothers and sisters or the school teacher themselves, and just discuss. the very important topics that they're struggling, but that they're going to face no matter what. Even if they aren't struggling with it personally, they will face it in the community. And I thought it was a great way to just reach it. I'm grateful it was accepted as such, and it's been a great success. Happy for it.
Outreach work involves dealing with constant weather. You know, you're dealing with setbacks, trauma in others, resource shortages. How has that mirrored the patience and problem solving you see in construction, and what kept you showing up day after day?
The day after day is the easy part. The kids steal your heart.
Yeah.
You get to see the magic, the beauty, the unlimited potential, and just the raw love. That's an easy one. To relate towards construction, it was when I'm driving out and I'm going up to the north, and I can remember going up to L'Orange, and I'm not up by Montreal Lake yet, and the weather's so bad I can't go anymore. It was great all the way to PA. My goodness, it was going to be a beautiful sunny day. Now I'm hitting sleet, and not past that, it was just ice, snow, and everything slowed down. Now I have to come all the way back, and I'm just thinking, my goodness, I wish I could have been. I feel disappointed I didn't make it. And it's like in the construction site, the same thing. I mean, I can go ahead and drive on and put myself in danger and get up there, and I'm tired and I'm frustrated, and I might make it, I might not. And even to get back with the storm, what's that going to be like? So the same way with the construction work, I could go ahead with that stonemason. We can still butter up the board and slam it on there. But if it's not proper, if the boards aren't wet, if the temperature isn't right, the mason's not going to respond accordingly, and it's not going to be the job you want, and the finished product's going to be flawed. And a lot like that, to go up north and sit in front of these kids all at once, it's not because of the love, it's not because of the desire to be in their presence and just to share their beauty, their amazingness. I often call it, all I just want to do is sit in front of these young youth and these children and hold up a mirror in front of them. When they see the beauty, when they see themselves as I see them, when they get to see themselves as God sees them, that they are limitless, they're potentially held back by their own restrictions. There's no limit to what they can want to do. I feel like just fanning that flame, making that wind blow where they're starting to lift and sense something's about to change. It's the greatest gift a person could have. You want to go back. You want to. Just like when I see a beautiful construction job, when you see some of the work, I go back years later and look at the shopping mall or some of the fireplaces I did. And it's absolutely beautiful. Esther's Inn in Prince George. It still stands to this day. Me and one friend built the whole thing. To see all that rock work, stone work, and just see it after 30 years, 35 years still standing. It's awesome. I'm hoping the seeds we planted, that they were all that these kids were beautiful, that they were worthy when they face the struggles that we face as they get older in life. I hope that seed grows just a little bit. And they remember looking in that mirror, knowing that they're all they can be, that they got this, that they can do it, that there's nothing they can't do. That somebody stood in front of them one day and told them, I love you. You are awesome. You are beautiful. You are amazing. And you can do anything. I just pray that they remember it when they're down, like I was when somebody was right there for me.
For listeners who might be dealing with addiction, abuse, or find themselves in that dysfunctional cycle, what's one piece of hope or a practical step you could share with them as a tool?
Probably the most simple thing, start every day with a prayer. Be grateful you're in there to start it. And then think of one little thing, just today, whether it might be the most simple thing, but do something for you today. Every single day, do something for you. You're worthy. You're beautiful. You deserve it. It might only be having that sandwich when you think, maybe I shouldn't. It might be just sit down for an extra half minute in that bathtub. You don't get that often. Do it. It might be just turning around and grabbing a little something so selfish that it's just you're going to eat that bar all by yourself. Maybe it's going to go for that walk in the sunlight. Whatever that little thing is, do something for you that's special every day, because you are. And as you gain control and you do something more and more, the bigger things become a little bit easier to accomplish, not quite so menacing.
The center wrapped up in 2022. What are you building or reflecting on now? Maybe through like your motivational speaking or reflections on your work. And how is that chapter influenced your view on long-term life building?
I think the privilege of speaking with so many children over the years and having hands-on and doing so much outreach allowed me to be comfortable in many different settings. And at the state I'm at now, where I have the privilege of just traveling to some different reserves and talking and visiting and giving out some books to the youth, I think it allows me to see no matter what age you are, you can do a little bit something. You can still give something back. I think it's allowed me to realize, despite the stumbling blocks, I think you may have said it best yourself, Ashton, when you mentioned that in your life, you're still struggling. You might not have it all together, but you're a darn good carpenter. I think that's it. We're never, ever going to arrive, but give yourself some credit. You're on the train, moving in the right direction. And I think that's one of the things for me is when I look back and I can see in a box I have here, hundreds of letters from youth, thousands of little printouts from university classes that I spoke to over 25 years of at the U of S. I'm going to look at them when I'm old and gray, and I'm going to read all them.
Yeah.
I haven't yet. And I'm going to be able to see that I did affect people. I don't want to do that now, and I've never taken the time to look through all these cards. There's hundreds, magazines, some book articles. I never ever wanted my head to get as fat as it was when I was a punk on the street. As an adult, when I look back now, I just hope that the grace of those that guided me is embedded in me enough that I can be that graceful to others as I go forward, and I still find a little wee crack somewhere where I can still bless a child in the way. That's what I classify as success now. The desire to just be able to spread goodness and love, not because of a company, a support system, a need and an obligation, but as a privilege. I've earned that privilege.
For sure.
And that's all I want
You
to do.
definitely have.
And that's the past that's allowed me to come to this. So I had to forgive myself enough that the mistakes we've all had. But I don't go back looking at all the beauty either and illuminating all the great things in the letters that I've gotten. So why would I do that in my own mind with the bad and the stumbling blocks? Other than to learn lessons to go forward. And I'll sit and have my little gleam and my moment in the sun when I'm older and gray and I can't do a whole lot much more. But until then, I think there's still a little avenue I can travel, a little crack that I can fill. There's got to be, for us that wish, an opportunity just to share a smile, lift someone up, tell a child that they are all that in a bag of chips. Tell them that God is bigger than the boogeyman and believe it yourself. And then allow them to just go forward with the grace that you were given and send the prayers that wish them the best. Hopefully along the way they meet as many gracious people as we have, and they can come out at the other side of it saying, what a ride, what a blessing, what a privilege.
There wasn't really much in the way when you started this back in 1991. So that kind of paved the pathway for a lot of these other places to come in and do the same kind of thing. Do you see how that has kind of played a big impact? You know, you have other kids that are no longer kids anymore. A lot of them are going to be adults.
Yes.
A lot of them will be my age even.
Sure.
Do you stay in touch with any of them along the way?
To this day, yes.
Yeah.
Some of them right from day one.
Yeah.
Some before I even started hands-on that I worked with, just because they were on the street and good kids that were struggling. I've had the privilege of watching some amazing dads become amazing dads because they believed in themselves. They decided to give it a shot. I think a lot of times, a lot of us just need that opportunity. It's awesome to watch somebody else take the advice you were given. It changed your life. So you just told them the very same advice you were blessed to receive 25 years ago. They took it to heart, and the same simple truth was still.
What's the best tool you've used in rebuilding your life, whether it's literal, metaphorical, or spiritual?
In rebuilding my life, it was easy for me to realize I didn't have coping skills. I didn't have education. I wasn't scholastically gifted. I really felt shortchanged in them areas. So to me, I think the biggest asset I had was just looking back and seeing that I just don't die, even though I've been left for dead.
Mhm.
And then believing that there's a God up there that actually believes in me. Why can't I? That would be the biggest, most powerful force that's helped me to alter my life.
Yeah, God has been definitely the biggest thing.
If he's not bigger than the boogeyman, I'm on the wrong team.
Right?
That's also applied to
absolutely.
There's not a university class where I haven't said that very line to.
Yeah.
God is bigger than the boogeyman. And if he wasn't, I wouldn't be here today.
Whether it's from your work with hands-on or your work with the community through your motivational speaking, people that you've met, what's one memory that still makes you smile and you feel very proud about?
Oh, gosh. So many of them got university degrees. But maybe one of the most beautiful ones might have been a young girl who was just turning 8, who hadn't gone to school yet. She didn't know any of her math, or couldn't write, didn't know the alphabet, couldn't tell time. Very bubbly, aggressive, heavy-set girl, big, beautiful cheeks, big personality. And she came one summer. She started coming hands-on around August. Got to know her by September. She was talking about she was going to be going to school. And she was really excited about it. And I realized in that process that she hadn't gone yet. And so in talking to her guardian, was a relative of hers, and said that, she has moved into the city now. She was going to be going to school, and yes, she would at 8 years old, be starting grade 1. And I was excited for her. And so in talking to her, I telling her, "Are you excited?" She was so excited she was going to be going to school. And at school the first day, by age, they put them in, because they didn't have a previous record. She was 8 years old, so they figured grade 2. So they put her in grade 2, and it was just a half-day school. She comes to hands-on, and I can see her running to me, because school is a block and a half away. I can see her running after school to hands-on, and she's so proud, and her cheeks, she's a bigger girl, like I mentioned, her cheeks are just so red because it was an effort. She's just so happy, so she's running hard. She gets there, I calm her down. "Honey, how's it going?" "Good, good," because she's so excited. I says, "So how'd school go today?" And she says, "I'm in grade 2. And I says, "So you're in grade 2? "Yeah, I graduated. I'm in grade 2. And I told her grade 1 was going to be fun. You were going to have a great time. And she was pretty excited. She was graduated in grade 2 on her first day. So I smiled and told her how proud I was of her, everything. And the next day she goes to school. She comes back at 3:15-ish after school. I was kind of waiting to see how that day was going to go for her. She comes in and she's happy as can be. I says, "So how's grade 2? She says, "I'm in grade 1. And she says, happy she was when she said she was in grade 2. And I said, "Well, that's fantastic. Peter.
Yeah.
That's great. I bet you're the smartest girl in grade 1. She was so beaming, a big smile broke out. She said, "Yes, I am, Rick." And she walked by me like I was her servant and just walked in the playroom and started having fun. It was that just showed to me, that was so beautiful a moment, and seeing this young girl grasp her situation wherever she was. We might say she, poor girl didn't get. That poor girl loved life, and she had it under control, and she found out she was gadgetating in grade 1. That was okay. She was willing to start at the bottom and go up. She was so happy she belonged. And I think that's with a lot of us.
Yeah.
And that's how it hit me. So, isn't that something like me every time I've had to start at the bottom and go back up?
Yeah.
And like a little kid, I get excited. I want to reach for the top. But then I have to take some basic steps to learn the process.
Yeah.
That little princess just reminding me again, you can smile through the process.
For sure.
That was one of the things that stuck with me the most. And to this day, I can't help but think of her smile and not smile myself.
Even with hands-on, you had a lot of those setbacks too.
Absolutely.
You had it running, and then there was some stuff that happened within the public and everything like that set you back, and then you kind of walked away, and then you said, "No, this needs to happen," and you come back to it. And then there was a car accident that set you back very dramatically.
Yes.
And had to put things on hold through that, and then you're back to it again. And there was always these funding things. That must have been a really tough time to go through even those things, because you knew the impact that you were having, but then you kind of have to walk away. But then you have the desire to come back, the will to come back, even despite the stuff that's going on.
Absolutely. It was quite the roadblock. some things that happened in our community I stood against and I refused to be part of or to accept. And I can remember just saying, I want nothing to do with this. And so I stepped out and said, I'm just done. You know, I put in my 10 years of blessing. I'm just going to go back, not to my old world, so to speak, but I'll end up on the oil rigs making some decent money and spending a lot of nights on night shift because I preferred it. We did some 5-week stretches of night shift, the crew I was on, and it gave me a lot of time to do some thinking. I miss them kids. I caught myself thinking, wondering how they're doing, how they're getting by. Gee, that wasn't right. And even though I had the chance to walk away because I didn't like it, a lot of them couldn't walk away because they didn't like it. And I remember
they're stuck with it.
Yes, and then me talking with the guys on the crew and the rig, the crew I was on specifically, I remember the driller, real dynamic guy, Colin, just telling me point blank that, Rick, you don't belong out here, man. Like, go back, do what you're supposed to do, man. You don't belong here. And I got friends with him. On our weeks off, we'd go golfing together. I'd go meet his wife and his kids, and we had friendship with my wife and his wife. And I stuck it out for 2 years, and then I said, yeah, you know, I can do this. I'll go back and I'll do what I honestly believed I was supposed to do, what I'm called to do. Just get over my little pity party, go back and do what I can do. And it was harder than ever to do. But all along from day one, success for Hands-On wasn't because of Rick Langley so much as his faith in God. I really believe I didn't apply for a single grant. Like I said, I wouldn't be able to fill one out, nor did I ever. Mm-hmm. We raised in 31 years, over $10 million. Yeah. And I can honestly say I didn't fill out a single grant. I wouldn't know how to, nor did I apply. It was by the grace of God, and it's amazing when you do your part and how many other people will step up. There's an amazing amount of businessmen that watch from a distance at different times step in and play ball. I've had businessmen fly here, drop off checks over $100,000 and just say, I like what you're doing, or please keep going. I'd love to take the credit for that kind of magic. All I can say is I just kept showing up. And I think that's a lot of what we have to do. We just have to persevere. Sometimes we feel like we're going 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and it's just getting a little bit frustrating because we're starting to maybe stumble even on the 2 forward. Perseverance, persistence. I think like any trade, you don't get that final Red Seal carpenter's approval until you've earned it. And in life, a lot of times I think we can't be at peace in our own inner spirit until we know we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And I think that's where I'm at in my life at this age, alive, hard to imagine, as good as I'm doing. What a blessing. I just feel privileged that I can still give something back.
I think generally people want to do something good, but you spoke about people stepping up, people flying here to come and help, doing all of that stuff. But there was a point where things got really rough for you because, you're trying to take these younger kids and keep them off the streets that are, you have street gangs and stuff like that are trying to recruit these same kids, whether it's family members and stuff. And it got very dangerous for you at times.
A few years, yes.
You were being threatened, intimidated. They had even come and broke into your home and stuff. Sure. They had broken into the building for Hands-On.
Yeah. 6 drive-by shootings.
Lots of people would walk away from a situation like that. And it takes a lot of strength and character to maintain doing that. And that you're going and doing something good. And you talked before about, like you put your faith in God and you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. But I mean, when you have stuff like that's happening, there's got to be a little bit more drive than just that too. Not saying that God isn't powerful enough to keep you going. It just meaning like when it got to that point, what could you say to somebody that is like to continue going at something like that?
I wish somebody would have been there to stop the bullshit for me.
Yeah.
I wish somebody would have stepped in. I took some beatings that were so bad. I know the teachers even asked where I was. Finally, at one time after a month of not showing up at school, the teacher sent the police, and I had a gangrene. They almost cut I have a scar from here on this arm. It was so infested with gangrene. If you wouldn't have stepped in, I would have died from gangrene. Just do what you can.
If your life story from your childhood to where you are now was a building type, be like a renovated home, a sturdy barn, a community center, what would you say it would be and why?
If I had a choice beyond anything, I'd have an orphanage.
An orphanage?
And not like an orphanage. I just use that term because I don't know any other word that would classify that type of a setting to the way I'd love to see a community where children could come and go as they needed to. Like hands-on, one year I kept open 24/7. Why don't we have that for the kids here? Why don't we have that for the street people? Why do they have to be a junkie or a drug addict before we turn around and give them a place to stay? Why can't we help them out in the process as they slide?
Yeah.
That would be what I'd want more than anything. A place where we had enough people in the community that we did the laundry, we gave them a reason to get up. They looked at us and actually said, especially when it comes to the church, and God forbid if I'm out of line, but how dare we turn around and say, give us tax exemption for everything and all this righteous land and all we have. And you can come on Sunday, but when you do, make sure you put something in that plate. How dare we turn around and say that we have to pay taxes and bitch about that, but we don't worry about all that we get for free through the government that we as Christians were told, pay Caesar's what Caesar's, but we look the other way if we can find a loophole. How come all that happens when we got all these people that need so much? So I'm not trying to be mean to the church, but if they wanted to step up and make a difference, how come we don't have one of these churches open 24/7 with mass amount of other churches, despite whatever unity or organization or denomination they say that they belong to? Words are cheap, actions speak volumes. How come the showers aren't being used? How come they're only used once a month, maybe for the high school gym when they come and do something? Why aren't them kids there? They have kitchens that surpass most restaurants. How come they're not cooking feasts in these kitchens and serving 24/7? How come they dare turn around and get salads? You know, some of these churches actually keep the darn doors locked during the day. We have churches in our city that literally have restaurants in it. If you're righteous and pie enough and you got the money, we got a red seal chef for you. My goodness. I get so mad. That's why hands-on is so important. Because when we can't lift up the least and we stand in our piety and look down on them and unlock the door if they have enough to eat in our restaurant, God forbid, what would I have? An orphanage for everyone.
What's your favorite way to recharge after like a day of service or going and doing motivational speaking?
Sitting outside in my backyard, reading, and usually with a pet. I've always had a dog basically since I've been a young man. So just with my pet, reading a book and soaking up the sun. That's heaven to me.
What's next for you? What's next for, what are you blueprinting or what are you excited about for building over the next couple of years?
Getting pretty close to 70. I'm just hoping I can still find opportunities to let the youth know that they are all that in a bag of chips, that God's bigger than the boogeyman, loves them dearly, and that they got what it takes. They got this. Life's a tough journey, but they're amazing. They can do this. That's all I'd love to do. And if I can be happy in the process and read a few more books, pet a couple more dogs, I'm in.
Is there a place that someone can go to find the books that you have, the coloring books, dysfunctional, any of the other things?
Well, I had all that in some of the bookstores, and at university was selling them through the textbook. Since I've stopped hands-on, it's embarrassing to say I'm basically computer illiterate, so there's not much I can really do. I could send them a book if they wanted, or books if they wanted. I have no problem doing that, blessing them. If they cared to send a little financial blessing, great. I wouldn't demand that by no means. If they wanted a book and they didn't have the means, please let me send you the book. Just give me the address. I'll take care of that end of it. As well, they could obviously go to my webpage at Rick Langley, reflections.ca. There's a place there that they can go and check out a little bit of what I've been doing. I don't update it much other than last year I went to 17 different reserves. I'll hopefully go to more this year. But it's a way that they can actually look and see that we're legitimate and that they could still make a donation that way if they wanted to, and they'd be able to get a tax receipt. I don't take a salary or anything, so I really don't need much other than just the cost of the books as I continue to bless the children. So I'm really laid back. I really don't have a lot of needs. And if anybody wanted to reach for any reason for me to speak for their youth or whatever, that's fine. They can just call. I'm so old-fashioned. I'll write it down in my daytimer and I will show up on time. Yeah. So if they're willing to go the old-fashioned way, I'm easy to reach. Love to be part of the youth community or the school or whatever I could do to sort of fan the flame, hold up the mirror and let them know they are all that in a bag of chips. I'd be in. Financially, that's not my goal whatsoever. Hopefully, getting that reflection. I need them to see how amazing they are, so that once it gets a little bit binding, a little bit difficult, that they'll hope you remember without a shadow of a doubt that they got this.
Well, I really appreciate, Rick, you taking the time to sit with me and go through this.
My friend, my privilege.
Yeah, you've been a longtime family friend, a big inspiration to myself. And I love you, brother.
God bless you. Love you too.
That's it for this episode of Building Life, where construction meets consciousness. I'm AC Strong, and I'm honored to be on this journey with you. I don't have all the answers, but I got a toolbox full of construction wisdom and a heart ready to learn. If you're ready to build a stronger, more meaningful life, hit that subscribe button so we can keep building together. Share your thoughts in the comments or send me a message. Until next time, grab your tools, physical or spiritual, and let's get to work. See you on the job site.